Today we're going to learn about word order in questions in English. Understanding word order is very important because English questions follow clear grammatical patterns. If we change the order of the words incorrectly, the sentence may sound strange, or even change its meaning. So today we'll review how questions are formed and how the order of the words changes. First, let's remember the normal word order in an English sentence. In most statements the order is subject plus verb plus object, SVO. The subject is the person or thing doing the action, the verb describes the action or state, and the object receives the action. For example, I like ice cream. In this sentence, I is the subject, like is the verb, and ice cream is the object. Another example could be, she attended university last year. Here she is the subject, attended is the verb, and university is the object. Sometimes a sentence can also include direct and indirect objects. The direct object is the result of the action. For example, Marie wrote a poem. In this sentence, poem is the direct object. The indirect object receives the action. For example, Marie sent me an email. In this case, me is the indirect object and email is the direct object. When we form questions, the word order usually changes. In English there are two main types of questions, yes or no questions and WH questions. Yes or no questions are questions that can be answered simply with yes or no. For example, do you like coffee? Have you been to Peru? Were you at home yesterday? Will you come to the party? In contrast, WH questions ask for information and begin with words like what, where, when, why, who, which, whose, or how. For example, where do you live? What did you do yesterday? Why are you leaving? One common way to form questions is through inversion, which means changing the order of the subject and the auxiliary verb. This often happens with the verb to be and with modal verbs. For example, I am late, am I late? I was tired, was I tired? I can I help? She will she come? In these cases, the verb moves before the subject to form the question. Another common structure uses the auxiliary verbs do, does, or did. We use these with the present simple and past simple of most verbs, except the verb to be. For example, you work at home, do you work at home? It costs £10, does it cost £10? She went to university, did she go to university? They attended the event, did they attend the event? The structure becomes auxiliary plus subject plus main verb. For other verb tenses, we form questions by moving the first auxiliary verb before the subject. For example, you are studying, are you studying? You have finished, have you finished? They were watching TV, were they watching TV? She has been working, has she been working? This rule works for many tenses, including present continuous, present perfect, and future forms. Now let's look more closely at WH questions. These questions start with a WH word, followed by an auxiliary verb, then the subject, and finally the main verb. For example, where do you play tennis? When are you coming to the party? What were you doing yesterday? Why did you leave early? These questions ask for specific information, instead of a simple yes or no answer. However, there is one special type called subject questions. In these questions, who or what is the subject of the sentence, so we do not change the word order. For example, who broke the window? Who is knocking on the door? In these cases the question word replaces the subject, so we do not use inversion. We can use questions like these when talking about life events. For example, where were you born? When did you graduate from university? How did you meet your partner? When did you get married? Why did they move out of their house? These questions help us talk about important experiences in people's lives. To summarize, English questions follow specific word order patterns. Statements normally follow subject plus verb plus object, but questions often require inversion, or auxiliary verbs. Yes or no questions can be answered with yes or no, while WH questions ask for more information. Understanding these patterns will help you ask questions more naturally when talking about events, experiences, and everyday life.